Guess what? I just bought another broken vehicle. It's almost like I can't help myself, because I can't. Because I know how to fix these things, and they're too nice to just see them right off to the scrap yard. But especially with new vehicles nowadays, this thing is 10 times better. And we broke something. And this has just turned into a nightmare. We're not gonna find what we need. Here we got a 2008 Mazda 3 with a 2.3 liter engine in it. One of the best engines Ford ever made. And that's right, this thing is basically just a Ford Fusion with a hatchback on it. And I know a little bit about this car because we've worked on it before, and it's always had some transmission issues. And we were able to keep it going for the guy for a little bit, but eventually it went bad. And he was kind of stuck on it, so we bought it from him to get him out of it. And these cars are pretty decent. The engines, like I said, are really good, and they're pretty comfortable to ride in. Now this thing has more than one issue, but the main issue we're concentrated on for now is a bad transmission. And let me show you exactly what it's doing, and then we'll go ahead and do a good old Just Call Me Eddie transmission removal and disassembly video. So this thing's only got 147,000, basically 148,000. And it looks like bro was doing his oil changes, so that's a good sign. Now one thing I'm noticing is this brake pedal is going down a little far. It feels a little spongy. I still think it's working. Feels like a brake booster. We also got a check engine light on, and that cruise control light on is probably just on because of the check engine light. But let's show you the main problem. So it'll move good. And one thing I do like about these Mazdas is they tell you what gear you're in. So it moves good in first and second, and it does stop. So that's a good sign. And we're not going far because it won't take long to show you what's wrong. So we pull out. And shifts into second gear a little harsh. Shifts into third gear, still holding good. And then fourth gear, we're just revving up, not going anywhere. And then now we get stuck in third gear, we get the AT light on, and the check engine light stays on. It also feels like we got something going on with the tires or the brakes. Maybe they've just been sitting. We know the tires are good, but it feels a little rough. Now this is a 5-speed front wheel drive Ford transmission. I believe it's a FNR5 or something like that. We'll look up the code when we get back. I've rebuilt them before. They're not too hard to do, although they're not that common to fail. And the main reason I believe this one failed is because of the TCM failing previously on this vehicle, leaving it stuck in third gear, and somebody just drove this car around in third and fourth gear all the time. And that wore out probably the overdrive clutch. So pretty simple diagnostic on this thing. You know the transmission's bad just by driving it up the road and seeing that fourth gear neutral out. Oh, that's the issue. The tire's flat. Whoopsies. That one's a little flat too. But I just wanted to show you what's wrong with the trans. And now we can get it taken apart and show you what's causing that issue. So that engine sounds really good, like a 2.3 liter should. This transmission fluid, it's been changed before trying to fix this issue, but it didn't. It's still a little dark in there. Definitely got burnt clutches. You can see back there, we've replaced the TCM before on this thing. You got to relocate it from on top of the transmission to right there so it don't get any heat saturation. Unfortunately, it was a little too late. And it looks like
nice.
We got some rodents that were living in here at one point, probably coming from underneath this cover. Let's lift it up and see how hard that unit is to get out. All right, so this thing has got what we call a K-frame, so it doesn't have the full frame coming all the way to the front of the vehicle here. It just has this half frame, which makes the transmission easier to get out. But when you have a front wheel drive and the transmission's out like this, you may have to leave it on the lift while you're fixing the transmission, which is not ideal because that means we got to go quick. So we got what looks like a new axle on this side and a little bit of an axle seal leak. That's probably what took out the transmission. And I don't know if we ever put that in or if somebody else did. Actually looks like that's not that new. It's just been leaking for a while because that axle is silver on this end and rusted on that end. So that means the oil has been preventing it from rusting. All right, to get it out, all he's gonna have to really do is get the ball joints and the axles loose, get those out of the way, and then he'll have to get the torque converter bolts, probably through the starter there. Then at that point, we'll put a jack underneath of it, take the upper mount loose, and then take all the bell housing bolts, and it should drop right out of there. Once the trans is out, we could put a brace up top, hold the engine from up top, and then push it out if we absolutely need the lift. Next time we see this car, it should be showing the rear main seal right here, which may need to be replaced as well. Now, while I would love to show you how to get this transmission out of this Mazda, I had some other business to attend to. So I left it at the shop, and before I could even film anything on it, the transmission was out and on the bench and ready for me to take apart. All right, let's take this bad boy apart. All right. Core converter, and we ain't got no fluid in there, huh? Maybe this thing was running dry. Set that off to the side. But first, we're gonna take apart this pan. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, so something's definitely burnt in there. You can see how dark that fluid is. A little bit of metal in the pan too. But this is the filter, I know that. This thing won't come off. You see a bolt hole in there. So I think we just do all these outsides. It's been a while since I built one of these guys. It's been a while, so it's gonna be like riding a bike. All right, so that's the valve body assembly, pretty simple. There's a band right there, and that's what that plate covers. But we're thinking the overdrive clutch is bad. So now I gotta take a couple more things off. We take this off, get the vent tube off of there. All right, now comes the fun part. So we're gonna try to get this upper bell housing off now. All right, so I think we gotta take these pump bolts loose, but even if we don't, we're gonna get them out of our way anyway. Let's see if this thing starts coming loose. Oh, there it goes, look at that. Bam. And then we can maybe get this whole bell housing off, just like so. Now this differential comes out, and look, this is probably the culprit of all our problems. We had an axle seal leak on this thing, and that spring is just sitting right in there. That's the issue with a leak, so we'll fix that with the new axle seal, of course. This looks like our forward clutch, or a direct clutch, I'm not sure which. Gotta look it up. That looks okay, there's nothing wrong there. And then that hub, it's kind of stuck in there, I don't know. It might be snap ringed on the other side. Alright, so this goes on the pump. We'll stack that up so we don't lose any of that. And now we gotta take apart this part prowl setup here. Pretty simple. From what I remember, that just comes off of there like that. And then somehow this little thing will slide out of there. And I believe that gets clipped in with this little thing right there. So that'll hold that clip in the car there. Alright, all we got left is a spring here for that part prowl system. So that's all out of our way now. And now, whew, there's a sun gear right there. Yeah, let's see if we can get this whole drum out somehow. Just like that. Bam. And that's pretty much it in this front half. Everything else is in the back half. So we found a bad seal there with the spring out, and all those clutches looked okay. So this thing was missing fourth gear, which means that whatever comes on for fourth gear is the issue. Or I believe this thing has a 2/4 band, which is this band down here. So I'm expecting to find something broken with that band when I pull this thing out back here. So now we got Torx head bolts. So again, we're thinking something on this band is broken back here. And you don't see too, ooh, we see a little bit of scarring on that. That's not great. That bushing was rubbing a little bit, but that's not the worst thing in the world. I don't see anything wrong with that band either. Why was this thing missing fourth gear, huh? Something looks burnt down in there. This band isn't really burnt. That's the 2/4 band it should be. And that should be what comes on in fourth gear. And that's the band adjustment right there. It doesn't really look much adjusting goes on. And we got the servo, so we can air check the servo here in a minute. Alright, it looks like, and I haven't built one of these in a while, but it looks like that sun gear is tied in to the front hub here. So I may have to like take a little bushing or something and knock that thing out. So this is what I'm talking about over here on this side, the hub. And we're gonna see if we can just knock this thing Well, that seems like it's working. Now that hub will come out, and that goes right onto that. No bearing in between, surprise, surprise, but that's because it's pressed into that sun gear. Now here on this back side, this sun gear should slide right out with the whole planet assembly there. And now this will come out with all those clutches. Those should be the low reverse clutches and the low reverse sprag. And then we also got a cushion plate that goes dish down. Okay, so we remember that. And that's it, guys. That's pretty much it. Now we need to figure out why we had to take it apart. What's wrong here? I believe it's that servo, and I'm also going to look up some information to see exactly what comes on in fourth gear to cause this issue. All right, so we've looked up the book here. Now, looking at this book here, we could tell that in fourth gear here, which is down here, the only thing that changes from third gear to fourth gear is the 2-4 band comes back on. So it comes on in second gear, it comes on in fourth gear, and it stays on in fifth gear. And that's why they call it the 2-4 band. But anyway, we looked at that. That's not burnt. And we're gonna air check the servo, but it's usually not a servo problem. Now the only other thing we could look at is the 3-4 clutch here, which is basically the overdrive clutch. Now what I notice here, from third gear to fourth gear, the forward clutch comes on and the 3-4 clutch takes over its duty. And I believe the 3-4 clutch is back in here, and it is what that goes all the way back and splines into down in there. So basically this is the forward clutch, that's spinning, that's spinning, that's spinning, and then in fourth gear, all that power gets transferred to this. And if that thing's slipping, then it'll cause our issue where it loses gear in fourth gear. Let's pop this thing open and see what the clutch looks like. So that's our direct clutch in there, and that doesn't look too bad, and neither does this 3-4 clutch in here. Now this is what you run into rebuilding transmissions sometimes. You know, you won't find the issue right away. So this direct clutch, we'll take a look at that while we got it out. This is like, oh, you're not finding a problem, that's great. Well, it's not really that great. None of that's a problem. All that looks great. All right, so low reverse couldn't be a problem, right? We already checked the direct and the overdrive. We know forward's not a problem because it went forward. This band, I mean, it's a little smoked. It's a little like delaminated there. It doesn't look perfect, but I don't think that's enough because it still grabs. It does what it's supposed to do. Like, that's not slipping. This little pin right here is what turns on the band. Now to send air to that pin and get it to actuate, you just send air through this little hole right here. So this little hole right here is what actuates that servo, is what it's called. Fluid pressure pushes it up, and it'll exhaust out of that hole. And you can hear it coming on. Let's see if we can watch it come on. Messy work. So you can see it come on in there. Yep, very slight, but you can see it. It's working. So now that leaves me to believe that this all could be a valve body issue, which means we didn't even have to pull this thing out of the car. Or it could be a sealing surface issue, which means we still have to pull it out of the car because you got to get this back plate off. So you see this O-ring right here. This is one of the ports that is supposed to seal to the back cover here to activate these clutches in here. One's for the direct clutch, one's for the overdrive clutch, and one's for the lubrication for all of it. So you see these O-rings are a little kicked in, and there's one down here like that too. So I wonder, and that could be the whole issue. So my mind is working right now. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. But I wonder if one of those holes that has that O-ring messed up in it, so this is the side hole right here. So let's see what that turns on, if anything. So that looks like it goes to the direct clutch there. It looks like this one goes to the direct clutch and that one. And they're both got bad O-rings on them. That outside one goes to the 3-4 clutch on the inside there. But the direct clutch is on the outside. So if you look at our shift apply chart, I believe the direct clutch comes on in 5th gear. So I could have just been feeling 5th gear missing. But that could be the whole issue there. So what I'm going to do now is see if I can find these holes on the other side where those apply through. and we'll put the cover back on and air check it. This is where you take something apart, you do a whole lot of work just to figure out it may not have been necessary. And that's where we're at right now. So let's test these solenoids and see if this solenoid D is bad, because it's the only solenoid that comes on in 4th gear. And if that's bad, then that's the whole entire problem, and we could have fixed it in the car. So the first test that we're going to do on this thing is an ohms reading, a resistance test. Now this is solenoid D, and that's A, and these are 2 shift solenoids. You got these over here, and that is electronic pressure control, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I know this one's D and this one's A. So the ohms should be somewhere between 10 and 26. And we're settling at 18, and it probably will settle on down to 17 if we keep holding it. That's good. That's exactly where it should be. You also look at this solenoid, and it does the same exact thing. You see it settles down at about 17.5, which means this one's good, that one's good, all this is good. Not good, because we have still yet to find a problem, which means we probably have a problem outside the transmission with the car. So since we've taken the transmission all apart, we can only assume that the problem is actually inside this car here. And the TCM is unplugged, but we have replaced it. So that's where it's supposed to be after you replace it. Beforehand, it's on top of the trans. But we also have some rats in here. When this issue first happened, there was no rats in there. So that's probably something that happened after it's been sitting when the issue developed. So it's either inside that little box right there, which you've already replaced, and they're not easy to get your hands on, or it's inside all these wires somewhere. And finding it, good luck. It's either put it all back together and try to find the electrical issue or scrap it. Basically where we're at now. This is a nightmare scenario for any mechanic, but believe me, this happens so much. It happens so much in the automotive industry. So what does that mean for all this stuff apart? Well, I've already got parts here. I've already bought a solenoid, which we probably can send back at this point, but I do have a reseal kit. So at the very least, we're gonna reseal this transmission up. We're gonna clean it up, reseal it, and everything should be good because we can't find anything wrong. So we'll just make sure everything is good, go back together slowly with it, get this all cleaned up and shiny, and then we'll get it back in the car and we'll see if we can find our problems. So in case you were wondering, here's my logic behind the solenoid causing the problem, or the problem being electrical, okay? So here is our shift solenoid apply chart. Now you see we got all our shift solenoids, and the code that we have in this car is for shift solenoid D, which is on the valve body over there. That's the one we tested. The reason why we're concentrated on this solenoid is the problem we were having was we were neutraling out in 4th gear. RPMs would go up and the car would not respond to that. And the only thing that changes in the solenoid pattern from 3rd gear to 4th gear is shift solenoid A opens and closes, and shift solenoid D goes from off to on, so it comes on. So unless shift solenoid A is getting stuck on, which I doubt it is, or stuck open, or it's more likely the on and off solenoid is being faulted. But the fault is obviously not with the solenoid because we tested it and it's good. So it's got to be in the car with the computer or the wiring delivering the voltage to the solenoid to enable 4th gear. So that's why we're going to be putting this thing back together now and air checking and monitoring everything as we go to make sure everything's working properly. And as long as it is, we're good to go put it back in the car, but first we got to find the electrical issue once we bring it in. All right, first things first, we got to finish disassembling this thing because I never took this side valve body off. So more fluid behind door number 3 there, huh? But it's still pretty clean in there. Well, we've been brake cleaning the crap out of this thing because we're not tearing it all the way down. Alright, just because we haven't found anything wrong yet doesn't mean we won't. We're going to go ahead and stack this thing up and check everything along the way and make sure it's good. Kind of what I'm hoping for at this point, because I haven't found anything wrong yet. Anyway, low reverse clutch, stacking it back up, baby. This little cushion plate goes dish down, like bowl down in there. Set that thing right in there on the piston. Then we get clutches. These clutches are easy to line up. Just fit them 3 things with those, slap them on in there, right? We're gonna go ahead and put the hub in there so it's easy to stack these clutches up. Bam. Make sure that sprag turns one way and not the other. Good to go. Now, more clutches. More clutches. Bam. Come on, be nice to me. Be nice to me here, low reverse clutch. Sometimes you gotta line these things up exactly right when they go down in there, you know? Sometimes they don't want to go home. This doesn't seem like the easier way to do it, but it is. 3 in the corner, last friction, bam, and then this 3 in the corner right there. Now we got a snap ring. Now we want that gap to go over here because there's space over here, okay? You want that thing to go over here. Just work it on in there, baby. All right. All that's in there. Now this, whoa, will come out of there if you're not careful, okay? But we already had the clutches lined up, so it's not a big deal. But that's gonna have to slide up just a little bit off of the bottom piston there. Now we got a planet that goes in here. Now a planet is just these 4 gears, and there's a sun gear in the middle of it, okay? The thing splines into the forward hub, that sun gear. Slides down in there just like that, and there's also another ring gear there. Now we slide that low reverse hub up because this planet goes down in there into this ring gear and splines into that low reverse hub. About kind of like that. And getting that low reverse hub up isn't the easiest to do. But we got to do it because we got to get a snap ring in there. There it goes. Oh yeah, that's satisfying right there. All right, the only thing we got now is this drum right here and a band, and then we're pretty much done. So this drum kind of got a sun gear on the front of it that splines in, as well as a planet. So you got to make sure it's all the way down. So now we get a band, and then this cover will go over it. Unless we can just go ahead and dry fit it to double check we're down all the way on that clutch, and it seems like we are. Now we air check the band through here, and we already see it looks good. This is a low reverse clutch, and you can't really see that, but it's basically down through here, and I can see it's coming on nicely. So all that's working. Now, the 2 clutches inside this drum, they get activated through these holes right here. One thing we got to do is change the O-rings there, and then change these seals, because these seals are what turn on those clutches. Well, we can go ahead and air check it now and see if it seals up without O-rings. It probably will. Now we can't watch the clutches, but we can listen for them. And basically the holes are right here. So one of them, I can hear it coming on in there. Then the other one may be a little more difficult to get to. Sometimes you gotta put a plate over these holes, kind of hold them like that. We can hear that one too. So both of those clutches are coming on. So everything looks good, like I've been saying. So back to the stack up here. We're just putting these clutches back in, and we're double checking everything as we go. So we took the secondary valve body off so we can pressure test both this clutch and the one that sits on top of it. So this one is the reduction clutch. That's kind of just like a brake, not big deal. This is the direct clutch, so it's driven. Now there is a sprag assembly under here, and that looks like it's holding nice and tight. All right, we finally got a wiggle down there, and it air checks. So all that work just to confirm that. So now, the only thing left is that forward clutch right there. We know that works. It moved forward, just didn't have 4th gear. All right, so here's the deal. We're gonna reseal this whole thing back up. We're gonna put the silicone on the back, the O-rings. We're gonna go through the valve bodies. Everything's going back together now. All right, so this is the final planetary system here. So there's one down in there, then there's this one here, and it basically just lugs in to the direct clutch here, then the sun gear, the input sun gear goes down in there. And that sun gear, or that direct clutch, turns that final drive pinion gear, which is that right there, which turns the differential. So this is basically the final drive unit, and again, nothing wrong with it or anything else in this transmission that we have found yet. All right, so now all we got left is the forward drum and the pump. All right, so this is a forward hub, and it lugs in to that rear planet assembly. All right, I'm pretty sure that's all the way down there. And this right here is the input / the forward clutch here. Now, I know this thing's good. We're not changing any clutches in this thing because I didn't find anything wrong with them. So these clutches are fine. Nothing wrong with them. And we knew that because it drove great forward. So we'll put them back in and we'll move on. So now we're just going to reseal this pump, and all we basically got to do is take these 10 millimeters out and put a new front seal in it. You probably don't even need to take the 10 millimeters out, honestly. Let's see if we can get it out without taking this 10 mils out. That looks like the same seal. All right, nice glued in seal so we know it won't leak out of the converter. So now we got the car back in here on the lift. So I'm going to be putting the transmission back in this thing, but before I do, I wanted to get it inside. And one, I wanted to show you how they chained this thing up without the trans in it. They just took a chain and bolted it up to the mount bracket up there and then put it right down here onto the bell housing. So you'll see this beautiful rainbow we got hanging right here. And the reason I got that all apart is because I'm making sure the circuit's good. There was a code inside this transmission for solenoid D. And solenoid D is the only solenoid that comes on inside that trans for 4th gear. We already verified we got a good solenoid. We've heard it click, and we got another solenoid. So we're, crossing that off the list. I just wanted to make sure this circuit's good all the way through the internal transmission wiring harness. So this white one goes to solenoid D. That's what solenoid D plugs up to inside the transmission. That's what we got the code for, and that's what comes on it for 4th gear. So it relates to all of our problems. We plug it in here, just like that, and then we take this other side of a pin that's plugged into our multimeter, and we go to solenoid D on the TCM connector, which I already know is this 3rd pin over on the 2nd row. And we got a connection at first. But when you wiggle this wire around, you'll hear that beep drop out. And that beep dropping out is it losing connection and resistance. So when it's stuck like that, there's no connection. It sets the code and it won't send voltage to the solenoid won't come on, the transmission can't get in 4th gear. So that's essentially what's going on. So I've just been wiggling this around and finding connection, but what we probably need to do is repin this connector, especially for solenoid D here. And that's probably the whole issue there. If it'll break like that, then the TCM will just cut it off and put it in failsafe. And that's what keeps happening. It's trying to send voltage to it, it's seeing like half a connection there, and then it loses it, and the PCM puts it in failsafe. The solenoid doesn't have enough juice to cut on. We neutral out in 4th gear. So that's it right there. Not connected. This is how hard these little problems that cause big problems can be to find. They're just very hard to find, very hard to locate. Let's repin this, and then now we can confidently put the transmission all the way back together and in the car and know that it should work. Alright, we found a pin that goes in there. It fits nicely. Everything works. Now we're going to trim this wire up, hook it up to our favorite butt connectors, and ohm it back out and see if we fixed it. Alright, we go to green and black on this, and we got white plugged in on this, and we should hear a beep as soon as we plug this in. Nice. We should be able to wiggle it around, nothing happens. I feel so much more confident. I'm gonna put the unit the rest of the way back together. All I really got left is the valve body and the seal the cases together. In the car she goes, and then we're gonna drive it down the road, and it's gonna work. I got confidence. We found nothing wrong with this valve body. It's actually very simple. There's like 7 valves total, 1, 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 valves total in this thing, and they're all really free. They all move very nicely. Everything inside this transmission is 100% fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm still going to double check, make sure there's nothing stripped out down in that planet assembly, but we're going back together with it, and now we're going to put it back in the car. All right, so this is the secondary valve body. It's got 1 valve in it and 2 solenoids, but this 1 valve, all good. And we replaced the gaskets in here, and there's just a solenoid down there and an accumulator. And the accumulator down here, all good as well. So everything's good. All right, everything looks good. Let's put the pan on, and then we'll get everything else ready to rock. Everything is built. We've done the main valve body, the secondary valve body, and everything inside. We've checked it, sealed it up. Now we just got to put it all back together and make sure it's in the right place. And the reason I had to do that all before I put the valve body in is because this wiring harness goes in before the valve body. And I wanted to double check everything all the way through this wiring harness, all the way to solenoid D at the end of this white wire right here. So we have successfully completed the circuit. The circuit was broken. Hopefully that'll fix our issue once we get it back in the car. I'm pretty confident about it now. Confident enough where we're going to do the rest of the work required. We're going to make sure everything looks good over here. We got these two things in there, these seals, all the bolts in, line up the manual valve, and we should be home free. All right, then we get a filter and a pan. We're going to let everything relax overnight, come back and seal up the case in the morning, put the pan on, stick it in the car. Should be a pretty easy install. So we ran into another problem. We were putting this thing together, double checking everything like I said I was going to do, and we broke something. And it didn't look that broken before I started trying to fix it and weld it back together. But this is a little anti-rattle clip, and it goes right in here some way, somehow. I don't even know if it'll go in anymore. But what it does is it sits on this bottom roller sprag, and it kind of, like when that sprag grabs, it'll dampen the blow onto that lug down there. And without it, you'll probably have a pretty big clunk. So the huge problem is we broke two of the springs, and you can't buy these things. I have yet to find anywhere online that has these things available. Here's the two little springs. I've been trying to weld them back on, get them to work, but unsuccessful. And it's probably from me trying to get that drum down in there exactly right, and it keeps breaking. And we can't put the car back together until I get that part. So now we got to go out to the junkyard and see if we can find a transmission that has that part in it so we can put this thing back together. And this has just turned into a nightmare. I did not plan on this video becoming a junkyard video. Anyway, we're here now, so let's make the most of it. Let's get the part that we need, this little thing. We found our first Mazda, and it's got our transmission in it. But the problem is it's still in the car, so it'd be a little bit of a pain to get out, so no bueno. There's another one, but that's a V6, and it's got a different transmission in it. So here's another Mazda. It's got this right engine. It's out of the car, but the transmission, nowhere to be found. Well, there it is again, inside the car. We're not gonna find what we need. Well, to say that was a waste of time is an understatement, and I am not the happiest guy right now, I can tell you that. One little thing is holding us up from getting this Mazda back together after we didn't even have to take it apart. And I just spent an hour in the junkyard looking for it, only to find it where I can't get to it. So what am I gonna do now? I don't know. I'm gonna have to call some part suppliers. There's no listing on it, and just see if they can, I don't know, take a good used one apart and get it to me. Well, we'll see what we can do when we get back to the shop. Maybe we'll try to weld this thing together again. We still got the tabs, so maybe we'll try a smaller welder. Try that. All right, we got one of these in the mail. So you see I tried to weld this thing here. Went out to the junkyard, tried to find one. No success either way. So we went to eBay and we actually found one. Luckily enough, out of Florida, the great Sunshine State. All right, we're not gonna mess this one up. And I'm gonna show you what kept happening and how this happened. You see those two little springs, and that's what the whole assembly's there for. It's there to dampen the sprag. So what kept happening is I kept putting this thing down here in the lugs where it belongs. That's where it goes. But every time I put this drum down in here and tried to get those springs lined up, it would bend these very thin springs down. So tough issue to get around, but the way we're going to fix it is we're going to figure out how this thing lines up. Here it goes. See how it's not clunky when we turn it, when it sprag stops it now? It's not clunky at all. And that's why that was so important. So this goes back on here on the sun gear. Then we get a differential which lugs into our final drive unit. It gets a bearing on top right there. The next step now is to silicone this case and put the other case down on top of it. Alright, even though we did all this work for no reason, it seems like this thing's ready to go back in, and it should work because we found a solid problem. Let's slap her in there. So I wasn't the one to take this unit out, so basically I'm just going to have to learn as I go. Kind of putting a puzzle back together that you didn't take apart. So anyway, we got to get around this K-frame here, which is the biggest obstacle. But you can wiggle around it and get these units back in, but you may have a struggle getting around that and some other things, and we may have to move the engine up and back. But you can get these transmissions back in if you just wiggle around it, and you may hit this along the way. We may have to move the engine up and down to get it to squeeze back in there. But let me mess around with it a little more, see what I can do. Torque converter is moving inside the flywheel. We are all good. And that's how it's done. Now we're going to put the rest of the bell housing bolts in, hook up the mount, and then we can let our jack down. Alright, we ran into a couple obstacles here, like this bad mount. Obviously, that's not going to work. So we got one of those coming. And I thought I lost some torque converter nuts, or the person that took this thing out lost one, but I ended up finding it in the car. So, all good. But the obstacle is that's where the torque converter nuts go. And if you drop it down into the bell housing, that's obviously no bueno. So we're going to go ahead and do that while we're waiting on the mount, and we still got the jack underneath of it. That way we could pop it back loose and get our nut out if we drop it. And to prevent that from happening, we got a magnetic socket here. Alright, look at this. We got a new mount. So now we're going to take it up top and bolt it in. And this bracket goes in first. Look, it has our transmission code on there. How nice of them. Let's take all this stuff upstairs with us. Alright, so this bracket, this mount bracket, it bolts up. You see this right here. That's where the TCM used to go. But not anymore. We moved it over there so it don't burn up again. Alright, so that goes like that, and then this mount just sits in there. That's always such a satisfying feeling because you know you're about done. Alright, now we're going to get this axle in, and this one bolts to the block here. So this is the carrier that we got to bolt to the block here. Alright, those are tight. Now we got to get this axle in the hole. Alright, now we got the driver's side. Check this out. I was going to put the tire on, but look at this. This is crazy. The guy was driving it like this. Look how loose that is. And it's the outer tire rod here. I drove it like this. Look at that thing. It doesn't even seem like it's tight. All right. Now that we got all that straight, we can put our tires back on. So now I got everything hooked up top, and basically all we got is what you see in front of you. So we're going to, and voila, and I've already put fluid in it, so we're about ready to drive. So here goes kind of the nerve-wracking part. We're going to start it up after we've had everything apart. That didn't sound good. I think we could be a little low on fluid. And that's what that noise is. I only put 5 quarts in it. It still went into gear, but that noise is not something I like to hear. I think it's definitely low on fluid. Let me make sure it's got good oil in it too. It definitely should have enough fluid in it to run. Alright, noise is gone, and that's because we got it full of fluid now. So, let's take it up the road and see if it has 4th gear. After all that work, one bad wire found, and nothing wrong in the transmission, it should drive right now. I don't see any AT light on the dash either, which is a good sign. Well, it's got reverse, and it's got first. So forward and backwards, shifts into second there. All right, here goes nothing. A little rough going into second there. Third. Something weird's going on. Got everything back together. The AT light is back on. And we had the battery disconnected, so you would think the codes would go away, but they may get stuck in the system. Or we could still just have a bad TCM, like I thought could be probably the issue. So this car's a disaster. And this is what happens sometimes, guys, when you let other people work on the cars, and then, you know, you go back behind them. Drove it up the street, missing fourth gear. Yeah, it seems like a bad trans. Let's pull it out. Didn't think about it till it was on the bench. So that maybe explains a little bit, or answers a little bit of your questions. Let me grab a scanner and let's see what's going on. Oh, all right. All we got is a turbine speed sensor malfunction. Okay, well that's good news, because before we had a solenoid code. So maybe I just got something wrong with the speed sensor. And you got TPM. Okay, let's see what's going on with the turbine speed. All right, turbine speed sensor just went and clicked in. That was a little scary because it didn't shift into fourth. But it didn't even command fourth, so it's not like it was. But we do have an oil leak, so we can't drive it very far. It's leaking a little bit, so we're not gonna drive it far to try to keep oil in it. Just trying to make sure we got fourth gear now. Second gear. Third gear. Fourth gear, there it is. All right, we got it fixed. Yes, sir, and we got fifth gear. Nice running and driving Mazda. Now we just gotta fix the oil leaks and everything else on this thing. But now this thing drives like it should, finally. Now we just gotta get everything else fixed. Now, I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the brake pedal, a little mushy. I think that could be an ABS module or a brake booster. It's also a little springy on the suspension. So we may need struts. Tires feel a little wobbly, maybe brakes, just basic maintenance now. And whew, that was a tough one. You know, it didn't go as planned, but when does anything with cars go as planned? It never does. I thought just taking it up the road once, you know, I would know what's wrong with it, but I didn't take into effect that, you know, we could have one bad pin in the transmission connector causing all those issues. It's kind of a weird problem, but I'm glad I filmed it, so if you have a similar problem, you can get yours fixed without doing all the extra work I did. But until then, go to stay-dirty.com to get a hat like this, a shirt like this, and much more merchandise. You can also go to justcallmeeddie.com and fill out the form if you have any questions for me. And you can even pay an extra fee now so I can respond even quicker, because, you know, sometimes I'm a busy guy, and if you pay me, that incentivizes me to talk to you. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and whatever you do, however you do it, make sure you work hard, make sure you play hard, and most importantly, make sure you stay dirty and subscribe. You can just call me Eddie.